Hello, I am Jason with c2access.com, and my phone number is 504-517-2620 if you have any questions. So I've been thinking about back-end infrastructure really from the point of view of the small business, because I hadn't built a lot of small business back-end infrastructure for ProLaw, and I wanted to come up with a design that I think would maximize speed and give a launching point and a growth method for your business. So, and we'll go into a few of the pros and cons about each of these designs. So really we have three different designs that I want to talk about today, and they're going to be from least expensive to most. So small biz, one server, getting bigger, and then finally the full-blown solution. So all three of these solutions really center around one concept, and that SSDs are king. So basically one of the biggest things is that I want to migrate all of your core infrastructure that your users are using to SSDs, which are basically RAM. They're not spinning disks for storing information. They're RAM. It's the fastest way that we can access our data. And so this is where I want to get to. So the first option, let's say that you're a small business, you have a limited IT spend. How should I build my network for ProLaw? And the reason that I think about it in this way is that ProLaw is your core business application. So it's going to be the application that your users should be using all day, every day with Outlook and Word. And so we really want to build your network around that. So the first thing is the whole premise that we're going to save money is by buying one physical server. You could buy 2 or 3 or 4, of course, but this is the absolute cheapest way, the best way that I can think about it. Now, again, just because we're buying one server doesn't mean that we're going to skimp out on SSDs. That means that we're building one server with SSDs. I haven't priced these things lately. My guess is it's going to be expensive. I mean, it's going to be a $10,000 to $15,000 spend here, maybe even more. But it's over 4 to 6 years, right? And it's your core business application. I mean, this is how you're running your business for years. It's like buying a car, except even more important, because it can't break down hardly ever. I would also get something called a NAS, which is just cheap storage, because your trade-off in being a small biz and to get the maximum amount of money value, you are going to have to archive closed files. So as soon as you complete a matter in your normal process, you can do this quarterly, biannually, whatever, but you're going to have to take information from your physical server and you're going to have to move it onto this NAS. This is cheap. Sorry, I already got there. Cheap, and then I'll also add slow storage. This is fast, this is slow, this is cheap, this is expensive. Okay, so the next thing that I've seen, because a lot of small businesses are doing this model, but on this physical server, they aren't making every internal server virtually, and they should, for a couple different reasons. So my recommendation is that you buy the software, buy the technology, ask your IT vendor to set it up this way, but these are all virtual servers. I want to make one your DC, that's controls all your Windows stuff. I want to make one your terminal server. We're going to talk about that in a minute. I'm going to give you 2 app servers, app 1, app 2. One's going to be mostly ProLaw application services. The second one's going to be network application services like antivirus, any other things. Everybody's got their own flavor of stuff. And then we're going to have one for a file server, and we're going to have one for SQL. All right, so the first thing that you really want to notice is that I'm including a terminal server in here. And the reason is that I want everybody to work directly on the server that has the two slowest components of SQL and our file server. So as soon as we start accessing this stuff over the network, if you just continue to work off of your local desktop, there's always going to be a slowness because you got to move it over the network. Now, if you have blazing fast network, local network speeds, that may not be an issue, but I find for a lot of small businesses it is an issue. And if we start using the terminal server as our base solution, then we can also enable remote access, and there's no difference for our professionals when they're working in court, if they're at a deposition, if they're home on their couch, or if they're in the office. No difference. We want that user experience to stay the same, and then we can have our IT resources focus on one environment to maintain. It's a way to save money, and it's the best possible speed solution for you. So what this really is working on top of the stack. So this is the new tech term that we talk about, but really what we're trying to do is we want to mimic these speeds of our SSD for our end users, and we can do that by stacking up all of the applications in one server. The downside to here is that if this server fails, your system's down. If you have a bad hard motherboard that just blips out, you're going to be down for a day. That's the cost of not spending $50,000 to $100,000. If you're going to spend less than $25K, that's the inherent risk that you're going to have to run to be fast and to take advantage of all the other things. So that's option one. Option two really is 2 and 2.5. So the first is that you can just take this physical server and move it into a shared data center rack. So I say this because most small businesses have this server running down the hall underneath Bob's desk, and your office is not made for servers. So as soon as you get this built out, you're feeling good about this, and the second step that I would make from there would be to put your server in a data center rack. This is going to cost you anywhere between $100 and $1,000 a month. It's going to most likely also include your internet. I like that too because once you get here, this is the most safe place for your data. Then, if you start growing and growing and you grow past this one server, then what I would do is I would start adding additional servers to increase virtual machines. But these things have to stay fast. These servers have to stay fast to one another. So to get the speeds that you really want out of these things, you're probably going to want to lean on the data center's infrastructure, because preferably we would have like some type of fiber connection between the two. And then really my first step would be to work on duplicating my hardware layer, so that way if one server died, then the other one could take over, and so that there would be no difference. This is getting more expensive just for the sake of you taking care of your own stuff. So that's why I was saying 2A, and we'll do 2B. Because really what I would recommend once you get to this layer is that really start at that point engaging with some data center service provider to maybe host your applications for you. Meaning that you could get away from having the hardware at all, and then all you have is a bunch of VMs inside of a data center. Now, there is also just straight ProLaw cloud providers. So this is another option where once you get to this point, you could say, well, I really like my network the way it's built. I want to keep it the way it is. Everything's great. I've got my own internal people who are supporting it. I don't need, because a cloud provider is going to be more, right? I mean, it's going to cost more. So you might be okay with just doing away with the hardware layer now and just continuing to manage your virtual machines, but that's being hosted on somebody else's hardware. You no longer own it. Or you could go down to a cloud provider which does something similar. The last option, just to throw it out there for the larger people, larger clients who might be listening to this, I talked to the ProLaw hardware guys at the conference, ProLaw conference this last summer, and I would really like to get some metric to test because I'm not 100% sure that I'm right, but I've not seen a faster system yet. So what I propose here is private cloud. So if money's no object, or you just have, you just want to do it your way and the right way, which is the thing, you would buy a SAN. So at this level, we have a SAN, and there's a couple different flavors of SAN. The one that I bought last was a hybrid, and so the top is SSDs and the bottom is spinning slow. So the way that it works is that all of your active information is sticking at the SSD level, but as soon as it becomes inactive data, it drops down to the slower spinning disks. And so a hybrid SAN is usually like, half the cost of a full-blown SAN. But you can buy a SAN that's full of SSDs if you want to. And then from there, then we're going to build a full-on VM environment where all of this is connected via fiber channel, and each one of these is inside of vSphere. And so then we can fail over and get our full N+1 redundancy. And you can buy all of this, to be honest with you. I don't know what it would cost today. It depends on how much, how big your SAN is, but say 100 to 500, depending on how much space you needed. The other thing that we've been playing with is, and it shouldn't matter in theory, but we've been stacking the SQL server, the ProLaw app server, and the file server all on the same physical server. And it shouldn't matter where they are here, but we are noticing a little bit of difference because here, when these communicate, they are staying on the same server. So I just wanted to share with you some of the strategies that I would employ if I was building a small biz. I just get one server, really focus on trying to get SSDs, and then you can offset your old data onto a NAS because SSDs are expensive. Step 2 from there is taking that physical server and dropping it in a data center rack, so that way you can ensure that your server stays online, and you can get a little bit of help from the data center too, maybe if you need it. Second from there is you can just skip moving your server. You already have it virtualized. You can just have your virtual environment hosted by somebody else, or after you get through your initial hardware spend, maybe you just jump straight to a ProLaw cloud provider. If you don't want to share space, if you want to be in control of your own destiny, then I would recommend option 3. You buy a SAN, you set up the proper vSphere with multiple servers, so that way all of your network can stay up, regardless if you have any hardware failures, and you own this. A couple other things that I'll mention real fast. LAN speeds matter. So if you are employing on a small biz, one of the other reasons that I built this and make everybody use the terminal server all day, every day, is that if you are traversing the network and this is running at a degraded state, like 100 meg instead of a full gig, you will see slow ProLaw speeds, but it's not ProLaw, it's the workstation. So to eliminate that, we just work directly on the server, and then the only thing that you're sending back to your workstation is just screen updates. And so that works fine regardless of the network. Plus, I want to start building getting people used to working inside of the terminal server here, because this concept flows come through everything. I'm always using TS. Always TS on top of SQL in your file server, so this is the core ProLaw application. Another side note, if you are running Exchange, stop. Just stop. I've been an Exchange guy for years. It's so expensive. The amount of hardware and money that we have to spend to host our own Exchange is too much. It's too much. Get Office 365 licensing. Stay up to date with your Office products. We're professional services. We really have to. Get Office 365. Move your mail into the cloud. If you're going to own your own hardware, only own the pieces that you have to own, and Exchange is not one of those things. Last thing I'll plug to, not because I get any money, but just because it's an amazing service. Wrap all of your network, especially once you start using remote access, in some multi-factor authentication. Duo is amazing. You can kind of use the Office 365 one too to a degree, but I would rather wrap my entire network in a security layer that is Duo. They're great folks. It's super cheap. It scales down. It's the way to do it. So Office 365, get rid of Exchange, Duo, small biz, get bigger. If you have questions, give me a call. Thanks.